I am the Craft Dad. Welcome back to Foam Sword Part 4 Crafting. This would be a lot faster if I didn't do LEDs. The first thing we gotta do is start measuring out where we want the pointed edges of the sword for the edge. So I just basically grab a ruler and draw a line across where the points of the sword are gonna be. I do this throughout the whole sword and start sketching out a basic rough template on the sword that I have created where I want my angles to be at. The reason I'm doing this is because what I want to do next is take another template to put over this one, and I'm going to basically transfer the sketched on template onto another piece of paper that I will then use to transfer to the multiple different sides of my swords. While you're doing your template, don't be afraid to freehand it. Again, these lines are just guidelines. So it doesn't matter if they're exactly right or not. These are just to help you figure out the shape of your sword and how you want to shape it. Once you have completed doing your outline, now we get a piece of paper and we grab our paper template. We're going to do again is sketch the outline of it. Now, some of you may be like, well, I have this template. Why the heck don't I just use it? Isn't that what we made it for? Well, because I plan to use this for multiple other projects in case in the future I'd rather sketch it out and have the different types of templates that I use. So as you work on sketching out the outline, figure out what works best, a pencil, a pen, a black marker, something. After you have your outline, the next thing you want to do is cut it out. Now, what some of you might want to do at this point to make sure you have symmetry with your weapon is you may fold the template in half, and as you cut out one side, you're getting a perfect replica of the other side. If you decide to do that, make sure you draw a center line. Now that I have the template, I'm matching up where the angle cuts are at inside the sword using my push pins. Since the foam doesn't keep the holes very well, I'm not too worried about the holes being seen in the final product. Once you've got all of the pins in, then just take a simple black marker and you're going to start drawing a line from the pin to the edge of the point where you want it. The reason for this is what I'm going to do next is cut slits, basically cutting out the black marker tips. And the reason for doing that is when I do that, I can then take this template and put it on the other side of the sword or the other sword that I have and redraw the black marker line, transferring it from the template to the foam sword, and then again going back through freehanding the connecting of the lines, and now voila, I have the same template transferred to all of my weapons. So as you can see here, I'm now getting ready to lay it on the other side of the weapon like I was talking about. And I don't have to pin it down, I'm just kind of holding it in a rough place of estimate of where it's at. Take a black marker and I remark the lines. Now again, once you've got those new lines, you begin freehanding and connecting the lines to determine the edge of the sword. Now for the fun yet messy part, using the Dremel with the sanding bit to start forming the edge of our sword. Now, because of how fine the particles are that are created from using the sanding bit, you definitely are going to want to wear a face mask and goggles. I've had chunks of foam fly up into my face before just because of the way the blade or the sanding bit rotates. Now, as you're starting to sand your edge, just start lightly, have it at a high speed, but just remember, the higher the speed, the faster the material you end up removing. So when you start getting close to where you want to do more fine detail and remove less material, you're going to want to reduce the speed of the sanding bit and take your time. Now, as you're going through this, you're going to end up having to hold the template at multiple different angles because it's very hard to just get one simple cut. So as you can see here, by looking at my fingers, you can see how dark and black my fingers are becoming. There are many different ways to use the Dremel. I use a nice quick back and forth motion. For some of the tight corners, I turn the Dremel and use it on its side, carefully trying not to ruin the angle that I'm cutting at. When I want finer detail or to try to smooth it out and get a smoother surface, I will lower the speed of the Dremel and then just use a back and forth motion. Now I'm using a drill bit or a sanding bit that has some sanding paper left on it still, so I'm still able to get a nice cut. Someone did talk about before that to use one of these sanding bits and completely strip all the sandpaper off of it, so basically it's like a giant rubber wheel or something like that, because basically to get a nice smooth surface they use it to more or less rub down the foam or to rub it out type thing. Whatever technique you use, if this is your first time using a Dremel, then I would suggest you take some of your scrap pieces and test the Dremel out. See how much gets removed at the different speeds, how much control you have, how much detail you can put in. Um, just gain some experience before you start working on your piece, because you can always take material away from the foam that you're working with. It is very difficult to add material back because you would basically have to hot glue on a whole nother piece and then re-Dremel it and hope you don't go too far and get down to the hot glue. Sorry about that, had a yawn. Yeah, so as you keep working your piece, what I found that it's better to have a Dremel that plugs in. Before I was using a cordless Dremel, and what I found out is that I was eating through batteries within a matter of minutes, which is not good, even with rechargeable batteries. So as you can see here, this is video in real time, and I'm got the drill bit at a slower speed right now, so you can see the rapid back and forth that I'm using. As I go along, I'll peel off some of the foam pieces that are on the edges, the pieces that you can't really Dremel off. They're just like really flimsy scrap pieces hanging on. Now, one of the difficult parts is actually figuring out what angle is the best or easiest for you to cut with. If you're ambidextrous, this would really help. If not, then you're going to end up having to move your foam piece around from different angles. Yeah, so this is probably a good reason to make sure your foam piece is not too large so that you can easily work with it as you Dremel. Now I've turned the speed up on my Dremel here, and you can see I'm not going as fast back and forth because with it at a high speed I could end up moving way too much material. And so I'm slowly going back and forth and working down the edge of the blade until I get to my guideline and the actual edge of the foam. Now that we've done both sides, you can see here I now have a sword that, well, is actually looking like a sword. The edge is fairly nice and smooth. Am I too worried about it being perfect? No. This is supposed to be like a medieval looking type sword, so I'm not worried about it being nice and pristine. And I've got paint that's it's going to make it look more like a pitted type metal on the edge than a nice, samurai type sword that would require very, very detailed sanding. As you can see here, I'm now sanding the textured surface off of the top because for me, I don't want the textured surface. I could have flipped it and used it on the inside, but then it gives me gluing problems because I don't get a nice edge where the two pieces of foam meet up. So I decided I'm going to Dremel it off. Now it is more work, but it still gives me a pitted type surface.